The plastic key card felt cold against my palm as my 8-year-old daughter Riley pressed it into my hand, her small fingers trembling slightly. "Mom, Dad doesn't know I found this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of our car engine. I glanced down at the black plastic rectangle room 327 printed in white letters on a hotel key card I had never seen before. My stomach dropped like a stone thrown into deep water. "Where did you find this, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as I pulled over to the side of the road. My hands were shaking now, and I didn't trust myself to keep driving. "It fell out of Daddy's jacket pocket when I was looking for gum," Riley said, her big brown eyes filled with confusion. "I picked it up because I thought maybe we were going to stay at a hotel tonight after Grandma and Grandpa's party. The anniversary party. Ethan had insisted we take separate cars to his parents' 30th wedding anniversary celebration. He claimed he might need to leave early for work, but now, holding this hotel key card in my hand, I understood the real reason. While I would be celebrating his parents' lasting marriage, my husband of 12 years would be in room 327 with someone else. My mind raced back to the morning's conversation. Ethan had been unusually insistent about the separate cars, almost aggressive when I suggested we go together as a family. "Sophia, I already told you I might get called in for that emergency project," he had said, not meeting my eyes. "You know how important this client is to the firm." I thought about all the late nights, the weekend work trips, the phone calls he took in another room. How long had I been blind to what was happening right in front of me? How many times had he looked me in the eye and lied? "Are we still going to the party, Mom?" Riley asked, buckling her seatbelt as she noticed I had completely stopped the car. I looked at my daughter in the rearview mirror. She was dressed in her pretty pink dress, excited to see her grandparents and cousins. Her innocence in this moment broke my heart. She had no idea that her discovery had just shattered our family. "Change of plans, baby," I said, making a U-turn. "We're going to drop you off at Aunt Patricia's house first." As I drove toward my sister's house, my mind was spinning with questions and a growing anger that felt like fire in my chest. Who was he with? How long had this been going on? Had I been the fool playing happy wife while he lived a double life? I called Patricia from the car. "I need you to watch Riley for a few hours," I said when she answered. "What's wrong?" "You sound upset," Patricia said immediately. She knew me too well. "I'll explain later. Can you just take her? Please?" "Of course. Bring her over now." 20 minutes later, I was hugging Riley goodbye at Patricia's front door. "Have fun with Aunt Patricia, okay? Mommy has some important things to take care of." "Is Daddy in trouble?" Riley asked, and the innocence in her question nearly broke me. "Adults sometimes make mistakes, sweetheart. But whatever happens, you are loved and safe, okay?" After leaving Riley, I sat in my car outside Patricia's house and stared at the hotel key card. The Grandview Hotel was only 15 minutes away. I could go there right now and confront whatever I was about to find. Or I could pretend I never saw this key card, go to the anniversary party, smile and make small talk, and live in denial for one more day. But I already knew what I was going to do. I had been Sophia the devoted wife, Sophia the understanding partner, Sophia who always put everyone else's needs first. Today I was going to be someone different. Today I was going to face the truth no matter how much it hurt. As I drove toward the hotel, I thought about the woman I used to be before I married Ethan. I had been strong, independent, and confident. Somewhere along the way, I had lost pieces of myself trying to be the perfect wife. Maybe it was time to find those pieces again. The Grandview Hotel came into view, its modern glass facade reflecting the afternoon sun. I parked across the street and watched the entrance for a few minutes. People walked in and out, couples, business travelers, families. Somewhere inside, in room 327, my husband was betraying everything we had built together. I took a deep breath, grabbed the key card, and stepped out of my car. Whatever I was about to discover would change everything, but I was ready. I had been living in someone else's lie for too long. It was time to face my truth. The hotel lobby was bustling with activity, but I felt invisible as I walked through it. The key card in my purse seemed to burn through the leather, reminding me of what I was about to discover. Instead of going straight to room 327, I found a quiet corner in the lobby and sat down to think. I pulled out my phone and did something I never thought I would do. I started investigating my own husband. I opened his social media accounts, which I rarely looked at, and began scrolling through his recent activity. At first, everything seemed normal. Pictures of our family, work events, posts about his favorite sports teams. Then I noticed something. In several recent photos from work events, there was always the same woman in the background. She was tall, blonde, and beautiful in an obvious way that made my stomach twist. I clicked on her profile, Victoria Chin, marketing director at Ethan's firm. Her recent post told a story I hadn't been aware of. Work trips that coincided with Ethan's emergency projects. Restaurant check-ins at places he had told me were business dinners. Pictures of expensive gifts, a watch, jewelry, flowers, that she thanked her secret admirer for. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through months of evidence I had been too trusting to notice. Every late night, every weekend work trip, every excuse had been carefully crafted lies. The man I had shared a bed with, raised a child with, built a life with, had been living a completely separate existence. I needed more than social media evidence. I opened our shared bank account and began looking through recent transactions. What I found made me feel sick. Regular charges at expensive restaurants on days when Ethan claimed to be working late. Hotel charges in other cities during his business trips. Always for two people, always at romantic places rather than business hotels. The most damaging evidence was a jewelry store charge from just last week. $800 at a store I had never been to, on a day when Ethan told me he was in meetings all afternoon. I thought about the small diamond earrings Victoria had been wearing in her most recent selfie, the one she captioned, "Feeling spoiled today." My anger was growing stronger, but I was also becoming more focused. I took screenshots of everything, saved every piece of evidence. If Ethan thought he could live this double life and face no consequences, he was about to learn how wrong he was. I called our phone company and requested detailed call logs for Ethan's number. As his wife, I was authorized to access the account information. The customer service representative was helpful, emailing me 6 months of call records within minutes. The pattern was clear. Multiple calls and texts to Victoria's number every day, often late at night after I had gone to bed. Long conversations during his commute, quick check-ins throughout the day. They were talking more than he and I had talked in years. Next, I accessed our credit card statements online. More evidence piled up, charges for lingerie at stores I didn't shop at, purchases at expensive spas and salons that I had never been to, dinner charges for two at romantic restaurants while I was home alone with Riley, thinking my husband was working hard to provide for our family. The most painful discovery was a charge for a couple's massage at a luxury resort during a weekend when Ethan claimed to be at a business conference. I remembered that weekend clearly because Riley had been sick with the flu, and I had taken care of her alone while worrying about Ethan's important work trip. I sat in that hotel lobby for 2 hours, building a case against my own husband. Every piece of evidence felt like another betrayal, another lie uncovered. But I wasn't just angry anymore, I was determined. Ethan had clearly thought I was too naive, too trusting, too dependent on him to ever figure out what he was doing. He was about to discover how wrong he was about the woman he married. I looked up at the elevator bank, knowing that room 327 was just floors above me. I could go up there right now and confront them. I could scream and cry and make a scene. But that wasn't going to give me what I needed. What I needed was a plan. I drove to my lawyer's office instead. Janet Morrison had handled our house purchase and Riley's adoption paperwork. She was also one of the best divorce attorneys in the city, though I never thought I would need her services for that reason. Sophia? Janet looked surprised when her receptionist showed me into her office. Is everything all right? I placed my phone on her desk, showing her the evidence I had gathered. I need to file for divorce and I need to do it right. Janet listened as I explained everything I had discovered. She took notes, asked questions, and helped me understand what the next steps would be. She was professional and kind, but also direct about what I could expect. With this evidence, you have a strong case for fault-based divorce due to adultery, she said. That could impact property division and potentially spousal support. But Sophia, are you sure you don't want to try counseling first? Some marriages can recover from infidelity. No, I said firmly. This isn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This is a pattern of lies and betrayal that has been going on for months, maybe longer. I deserve better than this, and my daughter deserves better than growing up watching her mother accept being treated this way. Janet nodded and began preparing the preliminary paperwork. We'll need to move carefully to protect your interests and Riley's. Don't let Ethan know what you've discovered until we have everything in place. I left Janet's office feeling something I hadn't felt in years, powerful. For too long, I had let Ethan make all the important decisions in our marriage. He decided where we lived, how we spent money, even how we spent our free time. I had convinced myself that being accommodating made me a good wife. Now I realized that what I had thought was being supportive was actually being invisible. I had made myself so small in my own life that Ethan thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. He was about to learn that the woman he married was still there, and she was much stronger than he had ever given her credit for. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Ethan was still asleep beside me, and for a moment, I studied his face. This man who I had loved, who I had built a life with, who I had trusted completely, was a stranger. How had I missed the signs for so long? While Ethan showered, I quietly went through his dresser drawers and closet, looking for anything else I might have missed. In his suit jacket pockets, I found receipts that told more of the story. Expensive lingerie purchases, jewelry, romantic dinner dates, all while he complained to me about our tight budget and suggested I cut back on my own small expenses. Hidden in his sock drawer, I found a second phone. My heart pounded as I turned it on. The phone was filled with text messages between Ethan and Victoria that made me feel sick to my stomach. Not just because of the obvious affair, but because of how they talked about me. "She has no idea," Ethan had texted just 3 days ago. "She's so focused on Riley and her little part-time job, she doesn't pay attention to anything else." Victoria's response was even worse. "When are you going to tell her? I'm tired of being your secret. I want to go public with our relationship." "Soon," Ethan had replied. "I just need to figure out the best way to handle things with the house in custody. She's so dependent on me, she'll be lost without me." The arrogance in those words made my anger burn even hotter. Dependent? Lost without him? I had been managing our household, raising our daughter, and working part-time while he played house with his girlfriend. He had no idea who I really was or what I was capable of. I took photos of every text message, every call log, every piece of evidence on that phone. Then I put it back exactly where I found it and continued my investigation. While Ethan was at work, I drove to Victoria's apartment building. I wasn't planning to confront her, I just wanted to see where my husband's other life took place. The building was upscale, much nicer than our family home. Victoria clearly made good money at the marketing firm. I sat in my car across the street and watched people come and go. Around lunchtime, I saw Ethan's car pull into the parking garage. My husband emerged and walked into the building like he belonged there, carrying a bouquet of flowers, the same type of flowers he hadn't brought me in over 2 years. An hour later, I watched them leave together. They looked like a couple in love, holding hands and laughing at something one of them had said. Victoria was wearing the diamond earrings I had seen in her social media photos, the ones Ethan had bought with our family's money. The sight of them together should have broken my heart, but instead, it strengthened my resolve. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a mistake. This was a full relationship, complete with affection, gifts, and a shared intimacy that Ethan had been hiding from me for months. I followed them to an expensive restaurant downtown, the same restaurant where we had celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary. They sat at a corner table, feeding each other appetizers and acting like teenagers in love. I took photos from across the street, documenting everything. That evening, Ethan came home acting completely normal. He kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, and played with Riley like the devoted father and husband he pretended to be. His ability to switch between his two lives so easily was almost impressive in its awfulness. "How was work today?" I asked, testing to see how easily the lies came to him. "Busy as always," he said without hesitation. "Spent most of the day in meetings about the Henderson project. Really boring stuff." I nodded and smiled, playing the part of the trusting wife while inside I was documenting another lie. While he claimed to be in boring meetings, he had actually been having lunch with his girlfriend at an expensive restaurant. After dinner, while Ethan helped Riley with her homework, I continued gathering evidence. I checked his computer and found more proof of his double life. Email confirmations for romantic getaways, online purchases for Victoria, even draft emails where he practiced different ways to ask me for a divorce. The draft emails were the most revealing. In them, Ethan painted himself as the victim of an unfulfilling marriage. He wrote about feeling unappreciated and unloved, about needing to find happiness elsewhere. He made it sound like his affair was my fault, like his betrayal was justified because I hadn't been the wife he wanted. Reading those words hurt more than seeing him with Victoria. Not because I believed them, but because they showed me how little he respected me. In his mind, I was the problem in our marriage, not his lying and cheating. But his draft emails also revealed his strategy. He planned to ask for divorce while making it seem like a mutual decision. He would suggest couples counseling first, knowing it wouldn't work because of his affair, then propose an amicable separation where we would split everything fairly. He had no idea that I already knew about Victoria, and he planned to use my ignorance against me. The final piece of evidence I found was the most damaging. Hidden in his laptop files was a folder labeled New Life that contained his financial planning for leaving our marriage. He had been moving money into accounts I didn't know about, preparing to start fresh with Victoria while leaving me with as little as possible. The documents showed that Ethan had been planning his exit from our marriage for over 6 months. Every kind word, every family moment, every intimate conversation during that time had been performed while he counted down the days until he could leave me for another woman. But his planning had a major flaw. He had assumed I would never discover his affair, that I would be blindsided by his request for divorce, and that I would be too emotional and dependent to protect myself legally. He had built his entire strategy around the idea that I was weak and naive. Tomorrow, I would show him exactly how wrong he was about the woman he had underestimated for so long. As I closed his laptop and erased any trace of my investigation, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like myself again. Not Ethan's wife, not Riley's mother, but Sophia, a strong, intelligent woman who deserved so much better than the lies and betrayal she had been living with. Ethan thought he was going to control the narrative of our divorce, but he had no idea that I was already 3 steps ahead of him. The next day was Saturday, and I woke up with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Ethan was planning to spend the day doing yard work, giving me the perfect opportunity to prepare for what was coming. Riley was invited to a sleepover at her friend's house, which meant I would have the evening alone with my lying husband. I drove Riley to her friend's house, hugging her a little tighter than usual. Soon, her world was going to change, but I was determined to make sure she felt loved and secure through everything that was about to happen. "Have fun tonight, sweetheart," I told her. "Mommy loves you very much." "Love you too, Mom," she said, running off to play with her friends, completely unaware that her parents' marriage was about to end. On my way home, I stopped at the grocery store and bought everything I needed to make Ethan's favorite meal, grilled salmon with lemon butter sauce, roasted vegetables, and his favorite chocolate cake for dessert. If he wanted to play the part of the devoted husband, I could play the part of the perfect wife one last time. But this performance had a purpose. I wanted Ethan relaxed and unsuspecting when I presented him with the truth about what I knew and what was going to happen next. I spent the afternoon cooking while Ethan worked in the yard. Every time he came inside for water or to check on me, I smiled and asked about his progress. He seemed pleased that I was making such an effort for dinner, probably thinking his dutiful wife was showing appreciation for all his hard work. If only he knew that I was preparing his last meal as my husband. While the cake was baking, I organized all the evidence I had gathered into a neat folder. Bank statements, credit card receipts, photos, text message screenshots, phone records, everything that proved his affair and his lies. I also printed out the divorce papers Janet had prepared, along with a detailed list of assets and debts that would need to be divided. I set the dining room table with our best china and candles, making everything look romantic and special. Ethan would think I was trying to reconnect with him, never suspecting that I was actually saying goodbye. At 6 o'clock, I called Ethan in from the yard. He looked surprised at the elaborate table setting and the delicious smells coming from the kitchen. "What's all this for?" he asked, and I could see him mentally calculating whether he had forgotten an anniversary or birthday. "Can't a wife make a special dinner for her husband?" I said sweetly, playing my role perfectly. Ethan showered and changed into a nice shirt, clearly thinking this was some kind of romantic gesture. When he came downstairs, I had everything ready, wine poured, candles lit, his favorite meal beautifully plated. "This looks amazing, Sophia," he said, seeming genuinely touched. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble at all," I replied, sitting down across from him. "I wanted tonight to be special." We made small talk during the first course and I could see Ethan relaxing. He probably thought his loving wife was going to suggest a romantic evening together, maybe even talk about taking a vacation or planning something special for our upcoming anniversary. Instead, I was watching him enjoy what would be his last meal in our home as my husband. "You seem happy tonight," Ethan said as I cleared the dinner plates. "It's nice to see you smiling so much." "I am happy," I said honestly. "I feel like I'm finally seeing things clearly." When I brought out the chocolate cake, Ethan's eyes lit up. "You made my favorite. What did I do to deserve all this?" "You've been working so hard lately," I said, cutting him a generous slice. "All those late nights, weekend work trips, emergency projects. You deserve to be appreciated." Ethan had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable at the mention of his work schedule, but he recovered quickly. "The firm has been really demanding this year, but it's all worth it for our family." I placed his dessert in front of him along with a manila folder tied with a ribbon. "What's this?" he asked, looking confused. "Open it," I said, sitting back down with my own piece of cake. Ethan untied the ribbon and opened the folder. I watched his face change as he saw the first document, A bank statement with his charges at Victoria's apartment building highlighted in yellow. He looked up at me, his fork halfway to his mouth, and I could see the moment he realized what was happening. "Keep looking," I said calmly, taking a bite of cake. "There's more." His hands were shaking slightly as he flipped through the evidence. Credit card statements showing his purchases for Victoria. Photos of them together at restaurants. Screenshots of their text messages. Phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts. The color drained from his face as he saw the extent of what I had discovered. "Sophia, I can explain," he started. "No need," I said, holding up my hand. "Keep looking. The best part is at the bottom." He flipped to the last document in the folder, the divorce papers with my signature already in place, waiting for his. "You want a divorce?" he asked, and I could hear the shock in his voice. "I want a lot of things, Ethan," I said, maintaining my calm tone. "I want honesty. I want respect. I want a partner who doesn't lie to me every single day. Since you can't provide any of those things, yes, I want a divorce." Ethan set the folder down and looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "How long have you known?" "Riley found your hotel key card in your jacket pocket," I said. "Instead of going to your parents' anniversary party, I spent the afternoon investigating my own husband. It didn't take long to find everything." "The hotel?" he said weakly. "Room 327. I know all about Victoria, Ethan. I know about the lunches, the gifts, the weekend getaways, the apartment visits, the secret phone, the money you've been hiding. I know everything." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, staring down at the evidence of his betrayal. When he looked up, I could see him trying to figure out how to handle this situation. "Sophia, listen to me," he said, leaning forward. "This thing with Victoria, it just happened. I never meant for it to go this far." "Stop," I said firmly. "Don't insult me with lies. I've seen your text messages. I've seen your financial planning. This has been going on for months, and you've been planning to leave me while making it look like it was a mutual decision." His face flushed red as he realized how much I actually knew. "I want you to sign the divorce papers tonight," I continued. "You can stay in the guest room until you find somewhere else to live, but our marriage is over." "What about Riley? What about everything we've built together?" he asked desperately. "You should have thought about that before you decided to build a secret life with another woman," I replied. "Riley will be fine. She deserves to see her mother standing up for herself instead of accepting betrayal." Ethan stared at me for another long moment, and I could see him processing this new version of his wife. The woman sitting across from him wasn't the accommodating, trusting person he thought he had married. This woman was strong, prepared, and completely done with his lies. "Sign the papers, Ethan," I said again. "It's over." Ethan pushed the chocolate cake away, untouched, and picked up the divorce papers again. His hands were shaking as he read through the terms Janet had drafted. I watched him realize that this wasn't going to be the amicable, controlled divorce he had been planning. "These terms are ridiculous, Sophia," he said finally. "You're asking for the house, primary custody of Riley, and half of everything, including my retirement accounts. I'm asking for what I deserve after 12 years of marriage and raising our daughter while you played house with your girlfriend," I replied calmly. "Those terms are actually quite fair, considering I could ask for more based on your adultery. You can't prove adultery in court just because I can prove everything, Ethan," I interrupted, tapping the folder. "I have photos, financial records, text messages, hotel receipts, and a witness." "What witness?" "Your 8-year-old daughter, who found your hotel key card and asked me why Daddy had a room somewhere else," I said, watching him flinch. "Do you really want to put Riley through a custody battle where she has to testify about finding evidence of your affair?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him calculating his options. He was finally realizing that his careful planning meant nothing because I held all the cards now. "This isn't you, Sophia," he said, trying a different approach. "You're angry right now, and I understand that, but you're not a vindictive person. We can work this out reasonably." "You're right," I said. "I'm not normally vindictive. I'm usually understanding and forgiving and willing to see the best in people. But you know what else I'm not? I'm not stupid, and I'm not weak, and I'm not going to let you control this situation the way you controlled our entire marriage. I never controlled our marriage. Really?" I stood up and walked to our kitchen bulletin board, pulling down a piece of paper. "This is the budget you created for our household expenses. Notice how it includes money for your golf membership, your expensive lunches, and your weekend trips, but I had to ask permission to buy a $20 pair of shoes for Riley." I pulled down another piece of paper. "This is the vacation plan you made for last summer. Notice how we went to the beach resort you wanted to visit, stayed at the hotel you chose, and did the activities you were interested in. When I suggested the mountain cabin I wanted to try, you said we couldn't afford it. I walked back to the table and sat down. This is our social calendar that you organize. Notice how we see your friends, go to your work events, and visit your family every holiday, but we haven't seen my college friends in over 2 years, and you complained the entire time we went to my sister's birthday party. Ethan was staring at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Those were practical decisions. Those were controlling decisions, I corrected. You've been making unilateral choices about our life together while making me feel like I had input. The only difference between your marriage planning and your divorce planning is that now I know what you're doing. I could see him trying to process this version of me that he had never encountered before. For 12 years, I had been the accommodating wife who went along with his preferences to keep the peace. He had no idea how to handle a woman who was standing up for herself. Sophia, please, he said, reaching across the table toward my hand. Let's not do this. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. I pulled my hand away. Why would I want to work through your betrayal? So you can lie to me more effectively next time? I would end things with Victoria. I would commit to making our marriage work. Because you got caught, I said. Not because you realized you were wrong, not because you missed me, not because you wanted to be a better husband. Because you got caught and you're trying to minimize the consequences. Ethan was quiet again and I could see him running out of arguments. Do you love her? I asked. The question seemed to surprise him. What? Victoria. Do you love her? He looked down at his hands. Sophia, that's not dash. It's a simple question, Ethan. Do you love the woman you've been cheating on me with? After a long pause, he nodded slightly. Yes. Then why are you sitting here trying to save a marriage you wanted to leave anyway? I asked. Sign the papers. Go be with the woman you love. Let me find someone who actually wants to be with me. It's not that simple, dash. It is exactly that simple, I said firmly. You made your choice when you started the affair. You made your choice when you spent our money on another woman. You made your choice when you lied to me every single day for months. Now I'm making mine. I stood up and started clearing the dinner dishes. You can sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow you can start looking for an apartment. I want you moved out within 2 weeks. What about Riley? Riley will stay with me in the house she's always known as home. You can see her on weekends and holidays, assuming you can fit her into your schedule with Victoria. Ethan finally signed the divorce papers, his signature shaky and uncertain. As he wrote his name, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I need to call Victoria, he said quietly. I need to explain what's happening. No, I said firmly. You don't get to discuss our private business with your girlfriend. You can tell her you're getting divorced, but the details of our separation are between us. Sophia dash. Those are my terms, Ethan. Take them or I'll make this much more difficult for everyone involved. He nodded reluctantly and went upstairs to pack some clothes for the guest room. I finished cleaning the kitchen and put away the good china, feeling like I was closing a chapter of my life that I had outgrown long ago. Later that night, as I lay alone in our bedroom for the first time in 12 years, I didn't feel sad or scared or lonely. I felt free. For the first time in years, I could make decisions based on what I wanted instead of what would keep Ethan happy. Tomorrow I would start building a new life for Riley and me. A life based on honesty, respect, and the knowledge that I deserved so much better than what I had been accepting. The woman Ethan had underestimated was about to show him exactly what she was capable of achieving on her own. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm and felt something I hadn't experienced in years, excitement about the day ahead. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I could make plans without considering what Ethan would think or prefer. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, making a list of everything I needed to do. Call Janet to file the divorce papers. Change the locks on the house. Open my own bank accounts. Update my emergency contacts at Riley's school. Start planning a life that belonged entirely to me. Ethan came downstairs around 8, looking like he hadn't slept much. His hair was messy and his eyes were red, making him look older than his 36 years. We need to talk about telling Riley, he said, pouring himself coffee with shaking hands. We need to tell her the truth, I replied. That you made choices that hurt our family and that mommy and daddy are going to live in different houses now, but we both still love her very much. You're going to tell an 8-year-old that I had an affair? I'm going to tell her that you broke promises you made to our family. She's smart, Ethan. She already knows something is wrong. Children always know. Ethan sat down across from me looking defeated. How do we do this without destroying her? We put her needs first, which is something you should have thought about before you started your relationship with Victoria, I said. Riley will be fine because she'll have one parent who is honest with her and puts her first. My phone rang, interrupting our conversation. It was Patricia. Sophia, what's going on? Riley called me this morning asking if she could stay here longer because she's worried about you and Ethan fighting. I looked at Ethan, who had the grace to look ashamed. Can I pick her up in an hour? We need to have a family conversation. Of course. Is there anything I can do? Just love us through this, I said. Everything is going to be okay. After I hung up, Ethan tried one more time to change my mind. Sophia, please reconsider. We could try separation first, maybe counseling. Stop, I said firmly. You don't get to negotiate anymore. You made your choices and now you live with the consequences. I drove to Patricia's house to pick up Riley, mentally rehearsing how to explain divorce to an 8-year-old. When I arrived, Patricia pulled me aside. Riley said you seemed upset yesterday and she's been worried all night, Patricia said. She's such a sensitive kid. She's going to be okay, I said. It might be hard for a while, but she's going to see her mother standing strong and making good decisions for both of us. Riley ran to me when she saw me, wrapping her arms around my waist. Mom, are you okay? You seemed sad yesterday. I'm actually better than I've been in a long time, sweetheart, I said honestly. But Daddy and I need to talk to you about some changes that are going to happen. The drive home was quiet, with Riley sensing the seriousness of whatever was coming. When we got to the house, Ethan was waiting in the living room looking nervous and guilty. Riley, come sit with us, I said gently. We have something important to tell you. She sat between us on the couch, looking back and forth between our faces with the intuition that children have about adult problems. Sometimes when grown-ups get married, they promise to love and take care of each other forever, I began. But sometimes people change and those promises get broken. Are you getting divorced? Riley asked quietly. The question surprised both Ethan and me. How do you know about divorce, baby? I asked. Emma's parents got divorced last year. She said they fought a lot and then her dad moved to an apartment. I looked at Ethan, who was staring at his hands. Yes, sweetheart. Daddy and I are getting divorced. Is it because of me? She asked, and my heart broke a little. No, baby. This has nothing to do with you. You are the best thing that ever happened to both of us, and nothing will ever change how much we love you. Then why are you getting divorced? I chose my words carefully. Daddy made some choices that hurt our family. When people break important promises, sometimes the only way to fix things is to make new arrangements. Riley was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Will I still see Daddy? Of course, Ethan said, speaking for the first time. I'll always be your dad and I'll always love you. I just won't live in this house anymore. Where will you live? I'll find an apartment nearby, and you can visit me on weekends and holidays. Riley nodded solemnly, seeming to understand more than an 8-year-old should have to. Can I still have sleepovers with Emma? Yes, baby. Your life is going to stay as normal as possible. After we finished talking with Riley, she went upstairs to play, seeming to handle the news better than I had expected. Children are often more resilient than adults give them credit for. She took that well, Ethan said. She's been preparing for this conversation without realizing it, I replied. Kids always know when something is wrong at home. The rest of the day was awkward but civil. Ethan packed more clothes and personal items while I started the process of separating our lives. I called the bank to remove him from our joint checking account and opened a new account in only my name. I called our insurance company to understand how the divorce would affect our coverage. I called Riley's school to update them on our family situation. Each phone call felt like taking back a piece of my independence that I had given up without even realizing it. That evening, after Riley went to bed, Ethan tried one last conversation. I know you don't believe me, but I am sorry, Sophia. I never wanted to hurt you. You're right, I don't believe you, I said. If you didn't want to hurt me, you wouldn't have had an affair. You would have talked to me about whatever problems you thought we had. You would have been honest instead of living a double life. I was scared to talk to you. I thought you would be devastated. So instead you decided to lie to me for months and plan to leave me for another woman? That was your solution to not wanting to devastate me? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. The truth is, Ethan, you weren't thinking about me at all. You were thinking about yourself and what you wanted, and you convinced yourself that your lies were somehow protecting me. But they weren't. They were protecting you from having to deal with the consequences of your choices. 2 weeks later, Ethan moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. Riley helped him pack his books and pictures, treating it like an adventure rather than a tragedy. Her resilience amazed me every day. The house felt different with him gone, not empty but peaceful. For the first time in years, I could arrange the furniture the way I liked it, watch the TV shows I enjoyed, and cook the meals I wanted without considering someone else's preferences. I was learning to be myself again, and it felt wonderful. 3 months after Ethan moved out, I barely recognized my own life. The woman who had been afraid to buy a pair of shoes without permission had enrolled in graduate school, redecorated the entire house, and started a small business doing freelance marketing consulting. "Mom, you seem different," Riley said one morning over breakfast. "You smile more now." "Do I?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. I felt lighter, happier, more like the person I used to be before I lost myself in trying to be the perfect wife. "Yeah. And you sing in the kitchen now. You didn't used to do that." She was right. I had started singing again, something I hadn't done in years. I was rediscovering parts of myself that I had forgotten existed. My friendship with Patricia had grown stronger during the divorce process. She had been my rock, watching Riley when I had meetings with lawyers, listening to me process my anger and hurt, and celebrating small victories with me. "I'm proud of you," she told me one afternoon as we watched Riley play in her backyard. "You've handled this whole thing with such grace and strength." "I don't feel graceful," I admitted. "Some days I'm still angry. Some days I wonder if I should have tried harder to save my marriage." "Some days feeling angry is healthy," Patricia said. "And questioning yourself just shows that you're a thoughtful person." "But Sophia, you didn't break your marriage. Ethan did. You're just refusing to pretend it isn't broken." The divorce proceedings were going smoothly, largely because I had been so well prepared. Janet had been impressed with the evidence I had gathered and the documentation I had organized. Ethan's lawyer had tried to negotiate different terms, but the evidence of his affair and financial deception made my position very strong. "Your husband's attorney is pushing for joint custody and a more even split of assets," Janet told me during one of our meetings. "But given the adultery and the financial records showing he was preparing to leave you with minimal support, I think we can maintain our current terms." "I don't want to be vindictive," I said. "I just want to be fair. He can see Riley whenever he wants, but her primary home should be with me. And I deserve half of everything we built together during our marriage." "That's exactly what we're asking for," Janet assured me. "Nothing more, nothing less." Meanwhile, my consulting business was taking off faster than I had expected. Word had spread about my marketing skills, and I was getting more clients than I could handle working part-time. For the first time in years, I was earning my own money and making my own professional decisions. "You should consider doing this full-time," my client Rebecca suggested after I had helped her double her online sales in just 2 months. "You have a real gift for this work." "I'm thinking about it," I admitted. "I want to make sure Riley has enough of my attention, but I love working again." "Working mothers raise strong daughters," Rebecca said. "Riley is watching you build something for yourself. That's a powerful lesson." She was right. Riley had become more independent and confident as she watched me take control of my life. She helped me with small tasks for my business, felt proud when I got new clients, and seemed to enjoy our quieter evenings at home. My relationship with Ethan had settled into a polite but distant co-parenting arrangement. He picked up Riley every other weekend and called her twice a week. Their relationship seemed strong, which was important to me despite everything that had happened between us. "How are things with Victoria?" I asked him one day when he came to pick up Riley. I wasn't asking because I cared about their relationship, but because I wanted to know what kind of influence she might have on my daughter. "We're taking things slowly," he said, looking uncomfortable with the question. "Riley mentioned meeting her. I hope you understand that I need to know who is around my daughter." "Of course. Victoria is, she's a good person, Sophia. I know you don't want to hear that, but she cares about Riley." I nodded, appreciating his honesty even if the situation was still painful. As long as Riley is safe and happy, that's what matters to me. It was true. My anger toward Ethan had faded into something more like disappointment. I no longer spent time wondering what I could have done differently or whether our marriage could have been saved. I was too busy building a new life to waste energy on the old one. One evening, while I was working on a marketing proposal and Riley was doing homework at the kitchen table, she looked up at me with a serious expression. "Mom, are you going to get married again?" The question surprised me. "I don't know, sweetheart. Right now I'm focused on you and work and making our life good." "Why do you ask?" "Emma's mom got married again, and Emma really likes her new stepdad. He taught her how to ride a bike without training wheels. How do you feel about that possibility?" I asked carefully. Riley was quiet for a moment, considering the question with the seriousness that children bring to important topics. I think it would be okay if you found someone who makes you happy. But only if he's nice to me too. Any man who wants to be in our life would have to be very nice to you, I said. You're the most important person in my world. I know, she said matter-of-factly, returning to her homework. You tell me every day. That night, after Riley went to bed, I sat on the couch with a cup of tea and looked around at the life I had created. The house was decorated the way I liked it, with bright colors and comfortable furniture. My laptop was open on the coffee table, showing the proposal I was working on for a new client. Family photos showed Riley and me smiling together at the zoo, at her school events, at the beach vacation we had taken just the two of us. For the first time in years, I felt proud of my life. Not proud of how well I accommodated someone else's needs, but proud of what I had accomplished on my own. I was no longer Ethan's accommodating wife or a woman defined by her marriage. I was Sophia, a successful businesswoman, a devoted mother, and a strong person who had taken control of her own story. The best part was that this was just the beginning. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing marketing plans for a new client. I saw Ethan's mother's name on my phone and hesitated before answering. Margaret had always been kind to me, but I wasn't sure how she felt about the divorce. Hello, Margaret, I said carefully. Sophia, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling. I wanted to talk to you about something important. Of course. What can I do for you? I need you to know that Richard and I don't approve of what Ethan did to you and Riley. We raised him better than that. The word surprised me. I had expected Ethan's parents to take his side, or at least remain neutral. That's very kind of you to say. It's not kind, it's honest, Margaret said firmly. What he did was wrong and we told him so. A man doesn't abandon his family for another woman and call it love. That's selfishness, not love. I felt tears in my eyes, not from sadness but from relief. Having Ethan's own parents acknowledge what he had done somehow validated my feelings in a way I hadn't expected. We want you to know that you and Riley will always be family to us, Margaret continued. This divorce doesn't change that. Riley is our granddaughter, and you've been like a daughter to us for 12 years. Thank you, I managed to say. That means more to me than you know. We'd like to continue having Riley for visits, if that's all right with you. And we'd like you to come to family gatherings. You belong there as much as anyone. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen crying tears of gratitude. I had been prepared to lose Ethan's family along with my marriage, but instead I was gaining allies I hadn't expected. The next surprise came from an even more unexpected source. Victoria called me. Sophia? This is Victoria Chin. I think we need to talk. My first instinct was to hang up, but curiosity stopped me. What do you want to talk about? About Ethan. About what really happened. Can we meet for coffee? I promise I'm not trying to cause trouble. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. I arrived first and chose a table in the back corner, wondering what Ethan's girlfriend could possibly want to say to me. Victoria walked in exactly on time, and I was struck by how different she looked from her social media photos. She seemed nervous, tired, and younger than I had expected. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sitting down across from me. I wasn't sure you would. I'm not sure why I did, I replied honestly. Victoria ordered coffee and then looked directly at me. I need you to know that Ethan lied to me too. What do you mean? He told me you were already separated. He said you were living like roommates, that you were planning to divorce anyway, and that he was just waiting for the right time to make it official. I stared at her, processing this information. When did he tell you that? From the beginning. The first time we went out, he said he was technically still married but that it was over in every way that mattered. He said you knew about us. I had no idea you existed until 2 weeks ago, I said. Victoria nodded, looking ashamed. I know that now. When he told me you were filing for divorce, I expected him to be relieved. Instead, he was devastated. That's when I realized he had been lying to both of us. She pulled out her phone and showed me text messages between her and Ethan. Look at these. After you confronted him, he begged me to wait while he tried to fix things with you. He said he realized he had made a mistake. Reading the messages was surreal. Ethan was telling Victoria that he loved her but needed time to work things out with me. He was telling her that I was being unreasonable and vindictive, that I was making the divorce harder than it needed to be. He's been lying to you too, I said, handing her phone back. I know. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I'm not proud of having an affair with a married man, but I honestly believed his marriage was already over. I would never have gotten involved if I had known the truth. Victoria's voice was shaking, and I could see that she was genuinely upset. What are you going to do now? I ended things with him yesterday, she said. I told him I couldn't be with someone who would lie to his wife and his girlfriend. If he could deceive both of us so easily, how could I ever trust him? I felt an unexpected sympathy for this woman who had also been manipulated by Ethan's lies. I'm sorry he lied to you too. I'm sorry I was part of hurting you and Riley, she said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know that I never intended to break up a happy marriage. We talked for another hour, and I learned that Victoria's version of Ethan was different from mine. To her, he had been the unhappily married man seeking connection. To me, he had been the devoted husband working late. He had carefully crafted different personas for each of us, telling us both exactly what we needed to hear. He's very good at being what people want him to be, Victoria said as we prepared to leave. I think that's his biggest problem. He doesn't know who he actually is, so he just mirrors what he thinks people expect. That conversation gave me a new perspective on my marriage. Ethan hadn't left me for Victoria specifically. He had left me for the idea of being someone different. Victoria had just been the vehicle for his fantasy of a new life. A week later, I received another unexpected call. This time it was from Janet. Ethan's attorney called today, she said. He wants to accept all of our terms for the divorce settlement. Really? What changed? I think his relationship with Victoria ended, and he's realizing that fighting you isn't going to get him what he wants, Janet said. He's agreed to the custody arrangement, the asset division, everything. That seems too easy, I said suspiciously. Sometimes when people realize they've lost everything they thought they wanted, they stop fighting for things they never really wanted in the first place, Janet explained. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks later. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. Riley was waiting for me with Patricia, holding a bouquet of flowers she had picked from the garden. Are we officially divorced now? She asked. Yes, sweetheart. Mommy is officially single again. Good, she said matter-of-factly. Now we can do whatever we want. Patricia laughed. That's the spirit. What do you want to do first? Ice cream for dinner, Riley said immediately. Ice cream for dinner it is, I agreed, and we drove to our favorite ice cream shop to celebrate the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. That night, as I tucked Riley into bed, she asked me a question that showed how much she had grown during this process. Mom, are you sad that Daddy isn't coming back? I thought about the question seriously before answering. I'm sad that our family changed, but I'm not sad that we're building a new kind of life. Are you? No, she said. I like it when it's just us. We laugh more now. She was right. We did laugh more. We were building something together that belonged entirely to us, and it felt wonderful. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was thriving in ways I hadn't expected. My consulting business had grown so much that I hired an assistant and rented a small office downtown. Riley was excelling in school and had made new friends in her after-school art program. We had created a life that felt full and purposeful. The final legal documents arrived on a Tuesday morning. Janet had negotiated everything exactly as we had wanted. I kept the house, received half of all marital assets, and had primary custody of Riley with generous visitation for Ethan. More importantly, I was financially secure enough to build the future I wanted for Riley and myself. You did well, Sophia, Janet said when I called to thank her. You went into this process prepared and focused, and you got exactly what you deserved. I still can't believe how smoothly everything went once Victoria talked to him, I said. Sometimes people need to lose everything they thought they wanted before they realize what they actually had, Janet replied. Ethan learned that lesson the hard way. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Margaret knocked on my door, carrying a casserole and wearing a determined expression. I brought dinner, she announced, walking into my kitchen like she had done dozens of times during my marriage. And I have something to tell you. Riley ran to hug her grandmother while I set the table for the casserole. Margaret had continued visiting us regularly since the divorce, maintaining her relationship with both Riley and me despite her son's actions. Ethan came to see us last weekend, Margaret said once Riley had gone upstairs to do homework. He wanted to talk about getting back together with you. I nearly choked on my coffee. What did you tell him? I told him he was 6 months too late and about 10 years too selfish, Margaret said bluntly. I told him that you had built a beautiful life without him, and he had no right to try to disrupt it now that his girlfriend had left him. Victoria told him the same thing when she ended their relationship, I said. She said she couldn't trust someone who had lied to both of us so easily. Margaret nodded approvingly. Smart woman. I never liked the idea of her, but I respect her for having standards. Did Ethan say anything else? He said he realized he had made a mistake, that he missed his family, that he wanted to try again, Margaret said. I told him that some mistakes can't be fixed, and this was one of them. You can't betray someone's trust and expect them to welcome you back when your other options don't work out. I was grateful for Margaret's support, but I was also curious about Ethan's state of mind. How did he seem? Lost, Margaret said honestly. I think he's finally realizing that the grass wasn't greener on the other side. His apartment is lonely, his relationship with Victoria fell apart, and he's watching you build a successful life without him. Reality is setting in. That evening, Ethan called to talk to Riley. Their conversation was normal. He asked about school, her friends, her art projects. But when Riley handed me the phone to discuss weekend plans, Ethan's tone changed. Sophia, I was wondering if we could talk sometime. Just the two of us. About what? About us. About our family. About whether there might be a chance to work things out. I was quiet for a moment, choosing my words carefully. Ethan, there is no us anymore. There's you and there's me and there's Riley, who we both love. That's it. But what if I could prove that I've changed? What if I could show you that I understand what I lost? You can't prove you've changed in 6 months, and I don't need you to show me what you lost, I said firmly. I need you to focus on being the best father you can be to Riley. That's the only relationship between us that matters now. Sophia, please dash. No, Ethan. I'm not interested in trying again. I'm not interested in seeing if you've learned your lesson. I'm not interested in being your backup plan now that Victoria is gone. I'm building a life that makes me happy, and you're not part of it. After I hung up, I felt proud of how clearly I had communicated my boundaries. The woman I used to be might have considered his request, might have wondered if she owed him a second chance, might have felt guilty for being so definitive. But I wasn't that woman anymore. A few weeks later, I learned that Ethan had tried to reconcile with Victoria as well. She had rejected him just as firmly as I had, telling him that she couldn't be with someone who only wanted her when his first choice wasn't available. He's been calling me every few days, Victoria told me when she called to give me a heads up. I thought you should know in case he escalates with you too. He asked to meet and talk about working things out, I said. I told him no. Good. I think he's finally realizing that actions have consequences, but I don't think he's learned enough to actually change. He just wants to undo the consequences without doing the work. Victoria was right. Over the next few months, Ethan made several attempts to insert himself back into my life. He volunteered to help with house repairs I hadn't asked for help with. He brought me flowers on my birthday, which I politely refused. He suggested family dinners for Riley's sake, which I declined. Each time I remained polite but firm. I wasn't angry anymore, but I also wasn't interested in giving him opportunities to manipulate me again. The final validation came from an unexpected source. Richard, Ethan's father, came to see me one afternoon while Riley was at school. I owe you an apology, Sophia, he said, sitting in my living room looking uncomfortable. You don't owe me anything, Richard. Yes, I do. I raised a son who thought he could have everything he wanted without considering how his choices affected other people. I should have taught him better. Ethan is an adult who made his own choices, I said. You're not responsible for what he did. Maybe not, but I'm proud of how you've handled everything, Richard said. You've shown more grace and strength than most people would in your situation. Margaret and I want you to know that we consider you our daughter, divorce or no divorce. That conversation meant more to me than Richard probably realized. Having Ethan's own parents acknowledge that I had been wronged and that I deserved better validated everything I had felt but sometimes doubted during the hardest parts of the divorce. As the 1-year anniversary of my divorce approached, I looked back on everything that had changed. I had gone from being a woman who asked permission to buy shoes to running my own successful business. I had gone from accommodating everyone else's needs to prioritizing my own happiness and Riley's well-being. I had gone from being afraid of being alone to enjoying my independence. Most importantly, I had learned that I was stronger, smarter, and more capable than I had ever given myself credit for. Ethan's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had forced me to find out who I really was when I wasn't trying to be what someone else wanted. The justice I had received wasn't just legal or financial. It was personal. I had reclaimed myself, and that was worth more than any settlement. 1 year after discovering that hotel key card in Riley's small hand, I stood in my newly renovated kitchen, looking out at the garden Riley and I had planted together. The morning sun streamed through windows I had chosen, lighting up walls painted in colors I loved. Everything in this house now reflected our personalities and preferences, not compromises made to keep someone else happy. "Mom, are you ready?" Riley called from the living room. She was dressed in her best outfit, excited about the celebration we had planned for today. Today marked the first anniversary of our new life together, and we were having a party. Not to celebrate the end of my marriage, but to celebrate the beginning of our independence and everything we had accomplished in the past year. Patricia arrived first, carrying balloons and a cake she had made with "Congratulations on your new life" written in elegant script across the top. Margaret and Richard came next, bringing gifts for Riley and flowers for me. Even Janet came, along with a few other friends who had supported us through the transition. "Look how different this house feels now," Patricia said, walking through the rooms we had redecorated together. "It's so much more you." She was right. The house had been transformed from a space designed to accommodate Ethan's preferences into a home that reflected Riley's and my personalities. Bright colors, comfortable furniture, artwork we loved, books we actually read. It felt alive in a way it never had before. "Mom, tell everyone about your big news," Riley said, bouncing with excitement. "What big news?" Margaret asked. I smiled, feeling proud and nervous at the same time. "I've been accepted into the graduate program at the university. I'm going to get my MBA while continuing to run my business." The room erupted in congratulations and hugs. Going back to school had been a dream I had put aside when I got married, thinking it wasn't practical or necessary. Now I realized it wasn't just practical, it was essential for the future I wanted to build. "When do you start?" Janet asked. "Next month. It's a part-time program designed for working professionals, so I can keep my business running and still be available for Riley." "I'm so proud of you," Margaret said, hugging me tightly. "You've accomplished so much this year." As the afternoon progressed, people shared stories about changes they had noticed in Riley and me over the past year. We laughed more, smiled more, seemed more relaxed and confident. Riley had joined the school art club and made new friends. I had started singing again, something several people mentioned. "You seem like yourself again," Patricia observed. "Like the person you were in college before you got so focused on being the perfect wife." "I feel like myself again," I agreed. It took losing my marriage to remember who I was outside of it. As evening approached and our guests began to leave, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the support system we had built. These people had stood by us during the hardest year of our lives, and now they were celebrating our victories with us. After everyone left, Riley and I sat on the couch together, looking through photos from the party and from the past year. Pictures of her art projects, my business achievements, our vacations, holiday celebrations, everyday moments that showed how full our life had become. "Are you happy, Mom?" Riley asked, curling up next to me. "Yes, baby. I'm happier than I've been in a long time." "Are you happy?" "Yeah. I like our life now. It feels more real." Her words surprised me. "What do you mean by more real?" "Before, it felt like we were all pretending to be happy. Now we actually are happy." Riley's insight amazed me. Even as a child, she had sensed the tension and falseness in our family dynamics when Ethan was living his double life. Now she could feel the authenticity of our contentment. Later that evening, after Riley went to bed, I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, reflecting on everything that had changed. My phone buzzed with a text message and I was surprised to see it was from Ethan. "I saw on social media that you had a party today. I hope you and Riley are doing well." I stared at the message for a moment before responding simply, "We are. Thank you." He wrote back immediately, "I know I don't have the right to ask, but are you happy?" I thought about how to answer that question. Was I happy? Yes, but not in the way he probably meant. I wasn't happy because I had gotten revenge on him or because I had won the divorce. I was happy because I had rediscovered myself and built a life that felt authentic and fulfilling. Yes, I wrote back. "I am happy." His response took longer to come. "I'm glad. You deserve to be happy." It was the most honest thing he had said to me in years, and I appreciated it even though it didn't change anything between us. 2 months later, at Riley's school art show, I met someone who would become important to our story. James Morrison was the father of one of Riley's classmates, and he had recently moved to town after his own divorce. "Riley's mentioned that you run your own business," he said as we watched our daughters show off their paintings. "That's impressive." "Thank you. It's been challenging but rewarding," I said. We talked easily about parenting, work, and the challenges of starting over after divorce. James was kind, funny, and refreshingly honest about his own struggles and victories. Most importantly, he treated Riley with respect and genuine interest when she came over to show us her artwork. Would you maybe like to have coffee sometime? He asked as the art show was ending. I would like that, I said, surprising myself with how ready I felt to consider dating again. As Riley and I drove home that night, she asked about James. He seems nice, Mom. And his daughter Emma is really cool. Do you think it would be okay if I went to coffee with him? Riley considered this seriously. Will you still have time for me? Always, baby. You're my priority and that will never change. Then I think it's okay. You deserve to have friends who make you smile. 6 months later, James and I were in a committed relationship. He was everything Ethan hadn't been: honest, supportive, and genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings. More importantly, he loved Riley and she adored him. Are you going to marry James? Riley asked one day as we worked in our garden together. Maybe someday, I said. How would you feel about that? I think it would be good. He makes you laugh and he helps with my math homework and he doesn't try to change everything about our house. That last comment made me smile. James had seamlessly fit into the life Riley and I had built together rather than trying to recreate it around his preferences. He added to our happiness without subtracting from our independence. 2 years after my divorce, I graduated with my MBA, expanded my business into a small firm, and bought a vacation house at the beach where Riley and I spent our summers. My consulting firm now employed 5 people and had clients across 3 states. On a warm Saturday morning, as I sat on the deck of our beach house watching Riley and James build sandcastles with his daughter Emma, I received a call that put everything into perspective. It was Victoria. Sophia, I hope you don't mind me calling. I have some news I thought you should know. Of course. What's going on? Ethan contacted me last week. He's getting married. I felt a moment of surprise, then realized I felt nothing else about this news. Good for him. I hope they're happy together. It's not me, Victoria said quickly. It's someone new. Someone he met at work. Her name is Jessica, and from what I can tell, she's about 10 years younger than us. I see. He wanted me to know because he thought I might be jealous or want to try again. I told him I was happy for him and that I hoped he had learned enough about himself to be a better husband this time. After we hung up, I sat quietly for a moment, processing this information. Ethan was remarrying, probably to someone who didn't know his history of deception. Part of me felt sorry for his new wife, but mostly I felt grateful that his need for a fresh start was no longer my problem. Everything okay? James asked, coming up from the beach with sand in his hair and concern in his eyes. Ethan's getting remarried, I said. How do you feel about that? I thought about the question seriously. I feel nothing about it. Is that weird? I think it's healthy, James said, sitting down beside me. It means you've really moved on. That evening, I had a conversation with Riley about her father's upcoming marriage. She took the news with the same mature perspective she had shown throughout our divorce. Will I have to go to the wedding? She asked. Only if you want to. Your relationship with your father is separate from his relationship with his new wife. I don't think I want to go, she said after thinking about it. I don't really know her and it might be weird. That's perfectly fine, sweetheart. You don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. Riley's relationship with Ethan had evolved into something that worked for all of us. She saw him every other weekend and enjoyed their time together, but she was clear that her primary home and happiness were with me. Ethan had become a loving but peripheral figure in her life, which seemed to suit everyone involved. The wedding took place 3 months later. Ethan had invited Riley but respected her decision not to attend. Margaret and Richard went, more out of duty than enthusiasm, and reported back that it had been a small, simple ceremony. How did he seem? I asked Margaret when she called to tell me about it. Happy, but in that nervous way people are when they're trying very hard to be happy, she said. Jessica seems nice enough, but she's very young. I wonder if she knows what she's getting into. That's not our concern anymore, I reminded her. Ethan's choices are his own to make and live with. You're right, of course. I just hope he's learned enough to do better this time. I hoped so too, for Jessica's sake and for Riley's sake. But his success or failure in his new marriage was no longer connected to my happiness or well-being. 6 months after Ethan's wedding, James proposed to me on the same beach where we had spent so many happy weekends with our daughters. The proposal was simple and perfect, no grand gestures or public displays, just a quiet moment between 2 people who had found genuine love and partnership. Are you sure you want to take on a ready-made family? I asked him after I said yes. Sophia, you and Riley aren't something I'm taking on. You're something I'm grateful to be included in, he said. You built something beautiful together, and I'm honored that you're letting me be part of it. Our wedding was everything my first wedding hadn't been: authentic, joyful. and focused on celebrating the love we had found rather than putting on a show for other people. Riley was my maid of honor, Emma was our flower girl, and we exchanged vows we had written ourselves in front of the people who had supported us through our journeys to find each other. Today we're not just joining our lives together, I said in my vows. We're joining our families together, and we're promising to build something that honors both where we've come from and where we're going. James's vows brought tears to my eyes. Sophia, you've shown me what it means to be with someone who is truly your partner. You've taught me that real love isn't about changing someone to fit your life, but about building a life that celebrates who you both are. As we danced at our reception, surrounded by family and friends who had supported us through our divorces and new beginnings, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. 3 years earlier, I had been a woman who asked permission to buy shoes and believed that accommodating everyone else's needs made her a good wife. The discovery of that hotel key card had shattered my world, but it had also freed me to discover who I really was. The revenge I had gotten wasn't the kind that comes from hurting someone who hurt you. It was the revenge that comes from building a life so beautiful and fulfilling that you're grateful for the events that led you to it. Ethan had thought he was leaving me for something better, but he had actually given me the gift of finding myself again. He had thought I would be lost without him, but I had discovered I was stronger and more capable than either of us had ever imagined. As the evening wound down and our guests began to leave, Riley came up to me with a huge smile on her face. "Mom, this was the best day ever," she said, hugging me tightly. "It really was, wasn't it? And Mom, I'm proud of you. You made everything turn out perfect." Standing there in my wedding dress, surrounded by people who loved and supported me, married to a man who appreciated and respected me, I realized that Riley was right. Everything had turned out perfect, not because it had gone according to my original plan, but because I had been brave enough to create a new plan when the old one fell apart. The hotel key card that had destroyed my first marriage had ultimately led me to a life beyond anything I had dared to dream. Sometimes the worst betrayal can become the greatest gift, if you're strong enough to unwrap it and see what's really inside. As James and I drove away from our reception toward our honeymoon, I looked back at the woman I used to be and felt nothing but gratitude for her courage to demand better. She had saved us all, me, Riley, and even Ethan, who now had the chance to learn from his mistakes and build something real with someone new. The sweet victory wasn't that I had gotten revenge on my cheating husband. The sweet victory was that I had gotten my life back, and it was more beautiful than I had ever thought possible.